When you hear the phrase dark feminine frequency, most people misunderstand it immediately. They think it something erotic, manipulative, or mystical in a cartoonish way. It's none of that. The dark feminine is not about sex acts or domination games. It is about gravity. It is about depth. It is about the quiet, magnetic pull that doesn't chase, doesn't explain, and doesn't beg. And semen retention, when practiced correctly, is one of the fastest ways a man unintentionally steps into a polarity that awakens this frequency around him. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people won't say out loud. The feminine does not respond to words, logic, or promises. It responds to nervous systems. It responds to presence. It responds to the silent signal of safety mixed with danger, stillness mixed with potential. When you constantly leak sexual energy through compulsive release, your nervous system stays shallow. You become predictable. You become readable. You become light, airy, and empty. There is nothing for the dark feminine to orbit around. Semen retention is not about morality. It is not about being pure. It is about pressure. Stored energy changes how your body occupies space. Your eyes slow down. Your movements become deliberate. Your voice gains weight without you trying. This is where the shift begins. The dark feminine does not awaken to effort. She awakens to containment. When your sexual energy stays inside you, it begins to circulate upward, not in a fantasy way, but in a biological and psychological way. Your spine holds tension differently. Your chest opens while your core stays firm. This is the posture of someone who can hold intensity without leaking it. Most men don't repel women because they're unattractive. They repel women because they are energetically needy. Neediness is not about wanting sex. It's about wanting relief. When you retain, your body stops broadcasting urgency. You stop seeking escape. And the moment you stop seeking escape, you become a container instead of a consumer. The dark feminine is drawn to containers. She wants somewhere to pour her chaos, her emotions, her contradictions. She does not want to manage a man's hunger. There is a phase during retention where discomfort rises. Restlessness, irritation, a strange sense of pressure behind the eyes or in the chest. Most men quit here. They relapse because they think something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. This is the exact moment where you either collapse back into comfort or step into mastery. The dark feminine frequency lives in this discomfort. It thrives where intensity is not immediately resolved. When you sit inside this pressure without acting it out, your nervous system learns dominance over impulse. This is felt instantly by others, especially women who are deeply intuitive. The dark feminine is not impressed by discipline displays or spiritual language. She is impressed by men who do not flinch when things get heavy. When emotions rise in a room, most men either joke, fix, or withdraw. A man practicing retention who has learned to sit with internal heat does something different. He stays. He listens without absorbing. He holds eye contact without trying to win. This steadiness activates something ancient. It signals that you can witness without collapsing and desire without consuming. Here's where people get it twisted. The dark feminine is not about control. It is about surrender, but surrender to depth, not to weakness. When your sexual energy is retained, your desire becomes slower and more focused. You stop projecting fantasies onto women. You start perceiving them. This is subtle, but powerful. Projection is invasive. Perception is intimate. The dark feminine responds to being seen without being chased. She opens when she feels you are not trying to take something from her. Retention also sharpens boundaries. When you constantly release, you unconsciously tolerate things you shouldn't. You laugh off disrespect. You accept crumbs. You negotiate attraction. With retention, your baseline satisfaction rises internally. You don't need external validation to feel whole. This changes the dynamic immediately. The dark feminine does not seduce men who are already full. She reveals herself to men who are grounded. When she senses that she cannot destabilize you, Sally, curiosity awakens. Polarity deepens. There is another layer for you. Talk about the dark feminine frequency includes destruction as much as creation. It tests. It provokes. It brings emotional storms. Men who retain but remain mentally weak often fail here. They think retention alone makes them powerful. It doesn't. Retention amplifies what is already there. If you are insecure, it amplifies insecurity. If you are resentful, it amplifies bitterness. Mastery requires integration. You must pair retention with self-honesty, physical grounding, and purpose-driven action. Otherwise, the dark feminine will sense imbalance and either dominate you or lose interest entirely. As retention deepens, your reactions slow. This is critical. Reactivity kills polarity. The dark feminine speaks in layers, contradictions, and emotional waves. If you react to every wave, you become a leaf in the storm. When you don't, when you let emotions pass through the space without needing to control them, you become the ground beneath the storm. This is intoxicating, not because it is flashy, but because it is rare. You may notice that women begin sharing things they don't usually share. Fears, desires, shadow thoughts. This is not because you are doing something. It is because your retained energy creates a psychological permission slip. You are not pushing for vulnerability, so it emerges naturally. The dark feminine reveals herself where she senses depth without judgment. If you try to label, analyze, or brag about this, it disappears. One of the biggest mistakes men make is trying to perform masculinity while retaining. Performance is loud. The dark feminine listens for silence. She notices how you pause before speaking, how you breathe when tension rises, how you leave space instead of filling it. Semen retention naturally creates this spaciousness. If you stop trying to use it as a weapon or a trick, there will be moments when attraction intensifies and sexual tension becomes almost unbearable. This is where mastery is forged. If you rush to discharge, you collapse the polarity. If you suppress desire, you become rigid. The middle path is circulation. Mobior, Bodhi, breathe into the spine. Channel the energy into creative work, physical training, or stillness. The dark feminine responds to men who can dance with desire without being consumed by it. Over time, something strange happens. You stop needing the label of dark feminine at all. You simply experience deeper interactions. Conversations feel charged without being sexual. Eye contact carries weight. Silence becomes intimate. This is the real mastery. Not control over others, but command over your own internal state. When your inner world is stable and energized, the external world responds accordingly. It's important to say this clearly. Semen retention will not make every woman attracted to you, and it shouldn't. The dark feminine is selective. She appears where there is resonance, not desperation. If someone is uninterested, retention helps you walk away cleanly, without bitterness or chasing. This alone raises your value energetically more than any tactic ever could. There is also a humbling aspect. Retention strips illusions. You start seeing where you used sex for validation, escape, or emotional anesthesia. Facing this can be uncomfortable. Many men relapse here, not because they are weak, but because they are avoiding self-confidence. The dark feminine respects men who can face themselves. She has no patience for men who run from their own shadow. As weeks turn into months, your sense of time changes. You become less rushed. This is deeply attractive. Urgency feels unsafe to the feminine nervous system. Slowness feels intentional. When you move slowly, speak clearly, and act decisively without haste, you signal leadership without dominance. The dark feminine aligns with leaders who don't need to announce themselves. Eventually, retention stops feeling like a practice and starts feeling like a baseline. Desire remains, but it is integrated. You are no longer split between hunger and guilt, craving and release. This wholeness is what truly interacts with the dark feminine frequency. She does not want half men. She wants men who can hold light and shadow without collapsing into either. The final truth is this: you do not master the dark feminine. You meet her. You create the internal conditions where depth recognizes depth. Semen retention is simply the gate. What walks through that gate depends on your character, your discipline, and your willingness to remain present when intensity raises. If you can do that, attraction becomes a byproduct, not a goal. And that is where real power lives.